4 April 1945. The Rhine River, Western Germany. Dawn is only just beginning to push through the gray mist that hangs over the shattered landscape. The riverbanks are littered with broken bridges, burnt-out vehicles, and the twisted skeletons of buildings that once stood along the water's edge. German soldiers, exhausted after weeks of retreat, stare across the muddy floodplain through binoculars. They expect tanks. They expect artillery. What they do not expect is what appears next. Across the churned earth, something strange begins to move. It is slow, clumsy, almost absurd. At first glance, it looks less like a weapon and more like a metal rubbish bin on wheels. A squat steel cylinder, barely the height of a man's knee, rattling forward through the mud with a mechanical whine. It bumps over stones, tips slightly, corrects itself, and keeps rolling. One German infantryman reportedly laughs. Another assumes it must be some kind of broken British equipment that has been abandoned and is now rolling downhill. But the object does not stop. It continues straight toward their defensive position. Within seconds, the laughter disappears. The strange metal drum reaches the barbed wire at the edge of the German line. There is a brief metallic click. Then the ground erupts. A violent blast tears through the wire in the shallow trenches behind it. Earth, timber, and steel fragments explode into the air. When the smoke clears, the defensive position that had taken hours to prepare has simply vanished. The German soldiers retreat in shock, because the thing that destroyed their position does not look like a weapon at all. It looks ridiculous. But in reality, it is one of the most unusual engineering solutions ever fielded during the Second World War. A British machine designed not to intimidate with size or power, but to creep forward silently, carrying an explosive charge large enough to tear through fortifications. It is called the Goliath's Nightmare by some German soldiers. Officially, the British know it by a far less dramatic name, the Great Panjandrum. And despite its bizarre appearance, this strange contraption represents a desperate attempt to solve one of the most difficult problems of modern warfare. Because by 1943, the Allies are facing a wall of concrete and steel that conventional weapons simply cannot break. The Atlantic Wall stretches for nearly 5,000 kilometers along the coast of occupied Europe. German engineers have spent years constructing bunkers, minefields, anti-tank barriers, and heavy artillery positions. Some gun emplacements contain naval cannons capable of firing shells weighing hundreds of kilograms. Others house machine guns positioned behind reinforced steel plates. All the entrances to these bunkers are narrow, protected by angled concrete designed to deflect explosive blasts. Even direct hits from conventional artillery often fail to destroy them completely. Naval bombardment can damage the structures, but it cannot guarantee their destruction, and infantry attacking these positions face almost impossible odds. Engineers estimate that some bunkers would require more than a ton of explosives placed directly against the structure to guarantee destruction. The problem is obvious. Getting that explosive charge into position is extremely dangerous. A soldier carrying demolition charges must cross open ground while under machine gun fire. Even armored vehicles struggle to approach because the beaches are filled with mines and obstacles designed specifically to trap tanks. The British Army experiments with several solutions. Specialized engineering tanks are developed to carry explosive charges or flamethrowers. These vehicles, part of the famous Hobart's Funnies program, are designed to clear obstacles and attack fortified positions during amphibious landings. But even these machines cannot reach every bunker. Some defensive positions are protected by anti-tank ditches, steep embankments, or dense fields of barbed wire. Placing explosives manually remains the most reliable method, and that means sending soldiers into the deadliest part of the battlefield.
Casualty projections for a cross-channel invasion are alarming. Allied planners estimate that thousands of men could be killed during the first hours alone if German defenses remain intact. What is needed is a way to deliver a large explosive charge directly into a fortified position without risking human life. In theory, the concept is simple. A small vehicle carrying explosives moves across the battlefield on its own, reaches the enemy bunker, and detonates. But building such a device in the early 1940s is extremely difficult. Remote control technology is primitive. Radio signals can be jammed or intercepted. Mechanical guidance systems are unreliable on uneven terrain. German engineers attempt a similar solution with the Goliath tracked mine, a small wire-guided vehicle packed with explosives. However, it moves slowly and is easily destroyed by rifle fire or artillery before reaching its target. The British designers wanted something faster, something simpler, something powerful enough to smash through barbed wire, cross sand, and deliver an explosive payload weighing hundreds of kilograms. The problem begins to look impossible. Then, a group of engineers inside the Admiralty's Directorate of Miscellaneous Weapons Development begins sketching something unusual. Instead of building a small vehicle with tracks or wheels, they design a weapon that moves by spinning. Two enormous wheels mounted on either side of a central drum. Rocket engines attached to the rims. When ignited, the rockets spin the wheels forward, propelling the entire machine towards its target. It is not elegant, it is not subtle, but on paper, it might just work. The Directorate of Miscellaneous Weapons Development, often abbreviated to DMWD, is responsible for some of the strangest inventions of the war. Located within British naval research facilities, the organization has already experimented with everything from bouncing bombs to explosive-laden motorboats. Their philosophy is simple. If conventional weapons cannot solve a problem, try something unconventional. In early 1943, one of their engineers begins developing a radical concept for breaching beach defenses. The device is named the Great Panjandrum. At its core sits a cylindrical steel drum, roughly 1 meter wide. Inside, engineers pack an explosive charge weighing roughly 1 ton. That is roughly equivalent to the explosive power contained in several large aerial bombs. Attached to either side of the drum are two enormous wooden wheels. Each wheel measures roughly 3 meters in diameter, about the height of a single-story building's ceiling. The wheels are reinforced with steel rims and spokes to handle the immense stresses created during operation. The real innovation lies on the outer edges of these wheels. Engineers mount dozens of solid-fuel rockets around the circumference. Early prototypes carry around 60 rockets per wheel. Each rocket produces a short but powerful burst of thrust when ignited, similar to the rockets used for aircraft-assisted takeoffs. When all of these rockets fire simultaneously, the wheels spin forward with tremendous force. The entire machine begins to roll. In theory, the Panjandrum accelerates rapidly, reaching speeds estimated between 60 and 100 kilometers per hour. At that speed, the massive wheels help it cross sand, debris, and barbed wire without slowing down. The explosive drum remains fixed between the wheels as the machine rolls forward like an enormous spinning axle. Upon impact with a bunker or defensive wall, the explosive charge detonates. The blast would be powerful enough to shatter reinforced concrete several meters thick. To visualize the scale, imagine a garden shed packed with explosives mounted between two giant wagon wheels, then launched across a beach by dozens of rockets firing simultaneously. It is absurd. It is also terrifying. Constructing the device requires careful engineering. The rockets must be mounted at precise angles so their combined thrust pushes the wheels forward rather than spinning them sideways. The wooden wheels must be strong enough to survive both the rocket ignition and the violent impacts with obstacles. Manufacturing takes place at several British facilities specializing in experimental weapons components. Exact production numbers remain unclear because many records from the DMWD were either classified or later destroyed. What is known is that several prototypes are constructed and transported to the Devon coast for testing. The location is a remote beach near Westward Ho, chosen specifically because its long stretch of sand resembles the terrain of the French coastline. Here, engineers prepare to see whether their bizarre creation can actually work. When the rockets ignite for the first time, observers describe a deafening roar. Flames burst outward from both wheels as dozens of rocket motors ignite simultaneously. The machine begins to roll, and almost immediately the test becomes chaos. Early trials of the Great Panjandrum reveal a problem that had not been fully anticipated. Rockets are unpredictable.